After the failure of the November 1830 uprising, thousands of Poles left the country to live a life in exile. They represented the cultural elite, the artistic elite, the literary elite. What was the effect on Poland, on ideas, on culture, of having the major cultural and political influences be forged outside the lands of Poland? In this episode of Poland Daily History, we look at these issues in greater detail and assess the effect of this great emigration. Welcome to Poland Daily History with me, Nicholas Richardson. Today I'm in the studio with Dominik Szczęsny-Kostonecki, a historian and a PhD scholar, and we're going to discuss the Great Emigration. Dominik, thank you for joining us. And first, can we just explain to the viewers what we mean by the Great Emigration?
The Great Emigration is the wave of Polish migrants traveling to Western Europe after the collapse of the November Uprising. It's mostly political migration. Unlike other waves of migration, for example, that from Galicia to the United States in the second half of the 19th century, it was mostly economic migration. This one is political.
And so this
migration.
would have begun about 1831 after the November uprising of November 1830, which was ultimately not successful.
Yes, you are right. And we have to explain to the public why it is called great. It's not great because the number was great.
No, because I think the numbers were something around about several thousand people.
10,000 maximum.
Yes.
No, I can recall one figure that by the end of the fourth decade, so let's say in 1839, in France, mostly in Paris, there were about 5,500 people. So 10,000 people altogether, maximum, spread mostly across France, Belgium, and Great Britain, of course.
But of course, great because of
and the greatness
is the people involved inevitably on these occasions.
In every wave of migration, there is a number of talented people. But anything like this, it cannot be compared with that great emigration, which carries names like Chopin or Mickiewicz or Słowacki. I mean, perhaps the only Pole known worldwide nowadays, no, except perhaps for Lech Wałęsa and John Paul II.
In the modern era,
in the modern era is Chopin. I mean, he is a part of the great migration. Here in the background we can see Prince Adam Jerzy Czartoryski, and the man to the right playing on the piano is Chopin.
And Prince Adam was sort of the leader of this gathering of exiles, if you want to call them that.
One of the two leaders, I would say, because a huge number of migrants would disagree with that term. I mean, the democratic left would even call him publicly the enemy of the Great Emigration. But of course, he was a great authority for many.
And following the November 1830 uprising, he of course had been involved in the provisional government back in Poland, Prince Adam, at one point.
Provisional, and then the regular government. So he was, in fact, he was the only figure that was there at the government for the whole period. Remember that Chłopicki was taking control and resigning, and so on and so on. Adam Jerzy is the symbol of the continuity.
And so I suppose once he got to Paris, then he was a sort of natural leader to try and continue this sort of bringing folk together.
Yeah. He had. I mean, that was a figure, a charismatic figure. He had a number of sworn followers.
Indeed. And at what point did he actually get to Paris? Was it in 1830?
And he didn't get to Paris immediately. First, he arrived in Great Britain. So it's only after a certain period of time. And then, of course, we have to produce that name because it's linked very closely with that name. That is Hotel Lombard which is the name of a building in Paris, still existing.
It's a rather splendid building on the Ile, just at the point of the Ile Saint-Louis, in fact.
The most posh,
exactly,
district of Paris, Ile Saint-Louis. And Adam Jerzy bought that residence in the 40s, in 1843, if my memory serves me correctly.
Yes.
And that became the name of this building became also the name of the whole political wing. It wasn't Hotel Lambert wasn't a party sensu stricto, unlike the Democrats created a party, a modern party, with membership, with membership fees and so on, and program, and so on and so on. On the other hand, I mean, there is no strict symmetry.
No.
So you've got a party, a modern party, which is the Towarzystwo Demokratyczne Polskie, TDP.
And the party, what was their main objective? What were their political aims? Apart from, obviously, an independent Poland, but I mean, can we be a bit more specific, a bit more detailed?
To discuss what should be the shape of this independence. And for the Democrats, the problem was that the social system of Poland was very unjust. So the main idea was to push the emancipation of the peasants.
Right.
To do it very quickly and under no condition. So to abolish any kind of serfdom, on one hand, on the other, to give the land that the peasants were working on, forcibly before. I mean, they were forced to do it. Of course, yes. And for the conservative movement, let's say, so Adam Jerzy and his followers, they also learned that this social system was wicked, but they would propose evolution rather than revolution.
A more gradual emancipation, process, yeah. A more gradual process.
Yeah, and of course that the peasants would have to pay somehow for the land that they were about to receive.
Because the makeup of most of these exiles in Paris, which became the principal centre for those people, was, of course, would mainly be of sort of noble or quasi-noble status. Mm-hmm. There probably weren't many sort of peasants' representatives living or visiting regularly the Hotel Lambert.
There were some representatives of the, let's say, we would say middle class, so the bourgeois. But very, very few really peasants, if any. I mean, I cannot recall.
No, well, revolutions tend to be led by almost by definition by a certain strata of society.